I'd like to bring up Rick Hawkins.
Thank you for having me. I've never been to a Rotary meeting. It's been a very pleasant experience so far. I especially enjoy participating in things that honor our country, and thank you for mentioning the Veterans Week. My son-in-law is in the military, and then the passing around and the grateful or happy grateful dollar thing is very cool to focus on things that you are grateful for versus, you know, focusing on maybe what you don't have or in those things. And I try to generally run my day and attitude with that that in mind. Just kind of look for the things that I'm grateful for and fill my day with that versus things that you know, seem to be missing or things that I think are missing. I'll keep this brief because I imagine there's probably more questions than me boring you to death with what's going on with me, and I know that the mind can only take what the rear end can endure. So, but essentially, my bar I opened in June '07, and we did very well the first 6 months, and then in January '08, when pretty much everything crashed, we went from doing in December of '07, 65,000 that month to doing 24,000 the next month. And it was that kind of drastic turnaround. I ended up firing everybody, worked the bar by myself with one other guy for almost 2.5 years. Barely kept the business open. At the time I had 14 friends that owned restaurants and bars, and there's 2 of us left at this point. Most of them went down in that 2 years, that from 2008 to 2010, most of them went down during that time. And and so it was, I'm lucky in the respect that I've been in the bar business for on and off for about 25 years, so I knew how to do everything. I'm a pretty handy guy, so I could do all my own maintenance, short of fixing the dishwasher. There's, you know, most stuff I could do. I tended bar for a long time, and so I was lucky in the respect of running my own business that I could fill all of the places that I would generally spend money, because there really wasn't any money to spend. In end of 2010, I was pretty much going to go bankrupt. I was $120,000 in debt. There was just no more to be done. I told my wife, well, this, you know, things don't get busier, I'm going to go bankrupt and we'll just figure out our next move. And for no reason, no new marketing, wasn't doing anything differently. We just started getting busier again, and we got busy enough that I was able to pay off 110 of the 120, and things were kind of going along pretty swimmingly. I actually made a decent income for a couple of years, and then for the same kind of unknown reasons, it just stopped, and we had been slow for about 2.5 years, and I had teed the bar up just for a fire sale because it wasn't making any sense to continue to operate. I wasn't really making a living. The debt was starting to stack up again, and I was just going to dump the bar and move on and just take a beating on it and move on. And what happened was Bar Rescue was canvassing in Northern California looking for places to do, and they left a voicemail at the bar. And I called the guy back and had a really good long conversation with the guy who's the gatekeeper, this guy Michael, that was hilarious, and then we just kind of got along on the phone, and that got us to the casting agent. And the casting agent came by, and after the casting agent left, I felt for sure we were not going to be on the show. They walked around and looked around, they stayed for maybe tops 20 minutes, asked a few questions, shrugged their shoulders and said, "No, I like you guys." And that was not terribly encouraging, and so, but we continued on with the process, and it was really at the next meeting I met with the co-owner of the production company, and her and I had an instant connection. It was kind of one of those things where you instantly like somebody when you meet them. We did a long, extensive video interview with them, and at the end of this process, her and I, hugged it out and had a good cry. And so at that point, she pulled me aside and said, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you're going to be on the show. And so the whole process to end up on the show was a 10-month process. It was the better part of a year, and at the time, I was just staying open to see if we got on the show. So I was really the bar, wasn't performing any better. I was just kind of hanging on because I figured, well, the worst case scenario was we don't get on the show, nothing changes. I sell the bar in the fashion I was going to before. If we get on the show and nothing changes, well, at least it's worth more that day once they've done the remodel. And if they do the change and it works out, great. I'll finish strong and maybe add another 5 years on the lease or something like that. But we ended up, there's reams of legal paperwork to fill out and background checks and tremendous, super long application, a lot of releases, basically letting you know that they're going to go ahead and portray you any way they want to portray you, and they, it's a TV show, but for being a quote-unquote reality TV show, it's one of the least scripted shows that I've seen done that way. Weirdly enough, have half a dozen friends that have been on all kinds of different reality TV shows, and most of them are really scripted, where they'll say, okay, we want you to go talk to this person that you don't like over here and do this thing and create this sort of drama. And Bar Rescue's not like that. They don't at any point say, hey, we want you to yell at the host, or we want you to do this or that or whatever. They don't, believe me, there's enough drama with bar and restaurant people anyway that you generally don't need to script anything. And it was one of these things where it was kind of, we were chosen over literally thousands of applicants. They get hundreds, sometimes thousands of requests, because it can be a challenging business. I got into the business. Most guys that own bars and clubs get in for a variety of the wrong reasons. Most of them want to drink a lot and meet girls and so on and so forth, and that's their primary motivation for owning a bar, which is not the best recipe for success. And for me, I'm super happily married and have been for quite some time. I just knew what they could do from a revenue standpoint, and had a lot of experience in the business. But the reason we were actually selected is because we were a different type of show. For those of you who haven't seen it, it is essentially a show which is very similar to Restaurant Impossible or Hotel Impossible shows, where they go into failing restaurants, bars, hotels, whatever it is, and the host helps them kind of recreate their space and maybe solve the problems that are blocking them from success. On Bar Rescue, generally the show is a big gross out where they go through and they look at how filthy everything is, and there's usually this big gross out factor in the show, and a lot of oohs and ahs on how disgusting most of these people keep their places. With us, it wasn't really that. They liked us because we weren't exactly that type of show. Prior to the show, we had 4.5 stars on Yelp. We did the customer service very well. We're professional bartenders. The place is super clean. But even with doing a lot of those things correctly and a lot of the things right, we were still failing, and they liked that aspect of it too. Also, my son, at the time, was working at the bar, and my poor wife was not working there mercifully, but she caught a lot of the collateral damage from my sort of. I think that I became a different person. The bar had been so bad for so long that I had opened and closed another couple of businesses during the time that I had been trying to get something else to work, since the bar was not working. Essentially, I've been working 2 jobs for the last 6 years. On the average, I worked about 100 hours a week. And I was when I came out of it, I realized that for a good like 2.5 year period, I'd probably been what someone would diagnose as clinically depressed. And I became just a really different person from how stressed out I was and working really hard and not having things really shake out. And it was in early 2014 that I kind of woke up and returned to kind of what I would call like my better self. And it was during that time is when we started doing this process for bar rescue. And so it was kind of nice that at this point where I was kind of re-emerging and coming back to being back to my old self and kind of reestablishing, participating more in the important things in life versus just working a lot, that we had this opportunity. This show selects people based on what they think is going to be good TV, and they make decisions on that primarily about what they think is a good formula for the show. And keep in mind it's TV and it's for entertainment factor, and so they wanted big over the top personality, and I gave them a big over the top personality. It's what kind of like cinched us on the show. They film for 10 to 15 hours a day for 6 days straight. Wow. They keep you hungry and tired, so that you're super irritable, and there's going to be a lot of friction. Wow. And then they edit the whole thing down to 47 minutes. So they decide, kind of what the narrative is going to be, and then they edit the show to fit that narrative. Our narrative was that I'm this big misogynistic, woman-hating, bar owner because I didn't have any female bartenders at my bar, and there were some practical reasons for that. But they were like, how come no female bartenders, and why aren't there any women here, and blah blah. And so they kind of handed that to me on, this is what we want out of you, and so I gave them a double barrel shotgun blast of what they had, and that really is what kind of cinched us on the show. And I went off on women bartenders and how they're a complete pain in the ass to have at your bar and so on and so forth. And so that was kind of the narrative that they picked up and ran with. And I mean, it was funny because for people who know me, I mean, my wife is an incredibly successful, professional, and I love my mom, and she was, I mean, all the women in my life are tremendously successful, wonderful people, and so that's not really who I am, but that's kind of what TV wanted, and that's what we gave them, and it was kind of the piece that really got us on the show. And so it's been kind of the fallout from that has been very interesting. I've had a lot of women come to the bar just to experience what a a-hole I am, and have discovered that that's not really who I am. And so it worked out in the sense that like me or hate me, it got people to show up. I'll wrap up shortly and answer questions. And so since the show, they filmed in the first week in January this year. Our episode showed in April, kind of end of April, and that's usually a longer period of time between when they film and when they show it, and that hurt us a little bit because we lost a lot of momentum that we had at the beginning. They usually show it 6 weeks to 8 weeks after your filming date, and they kept pushing us back because we ended up being the season finale. We were the highest rated show of the season, and a lot of what really resonated for people generally with the show was this guy John Taffer, that's the host. Is a great guy, but he's a jerk all at the same time. He got all these family elements involved. Like he convinced my dad to come on the show, so my dad and I had this big teary moment on the show. And they bushwhack you all the time with stuff during the process where they like bring this person in. It's kind of like Brian Gumbel always makes the sports athletes cry. That's essentially what Taffer did to me the whole time. My wife and I joked that I was going to be the owner that cries the entire episode. Because it was a very emotional process. I mean, having to kind of relive on camera the ups and downs of it was really almost 8 years, and kind of hearing those things, like in what I had put kind of other people through as a result, it was tough. It was you know, it was a very kind of emotional thing. Fortunately, the way they edited it, I just kind of looked like a jerk, and then they do it. I was like, they cut most of the stuff where I'm bawling the entire time, which I'm not grateful for. But overall, it was, you know, a tremendous experience. It's once in a lifetime kind of thing. You know, calling me a TV star, I think, is, you know, like calling me the, I don't know, smartest special needs person. I think it's just, you know, it's not in any way something that I think is I'm not too I don't think much of it really, you know. And overall, it was a tremendous experience. The host of the show is a terrific guy. He's made a lot of time for me after the show. He's a tremendously successful, busy guy, and doesn't have to do those things. And so it was a neat experience overall in terms of some of the things that I hadn't anticipated coming out of it. I thought after the show aired that the internet trolls and haters were going to come out by the hundreds and just bombard me, and I had a complete opposite experience where people were incredibly gracious and congratulatory. It put me in a position to be of service to some people that I would have never had access to before. I helped a group of Iraq vets write their business plan for, they want to open a bar, they're in Texas, and I was able to work with them on, you know, at least helping them write a successful business plan to get them sort of closer to where they wanted to be, and have them think about some questions that they may have not thought about. A lot of people think, oh, you know, owning a bar would be great. I try to talk everybody that has that idea in their head out of it, usually successfully. So overall, you know, I really appreciate you guys inviting me out and listening to my boring story, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you for having me.
I watched the show, and I'm a big fan of the show. What is it that we don't know about the show that surprised you about the process?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that what really surprised me was how tremendous the host of the show was. That he is the real deal. He's not just some TV personality. He's a true professional, and more than anything else, he's in it for the people. He's not in it for the money. The guy's got plenty of money. He's really in it for the people, and that was the main thing that really surprised me, is that the host was such a tremendous person, and that's the most common question. I go, oh, what's that guy really like? You know, he seems like such a jerk, and he really couldn't be anything further from the truth. So I think that was the main thing that surprised me, is how tremendous the host was.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
So I suppose the bar is doing better now, but I wonder, was there a secret ingredient that the bar rescue people gave you that you didn't try before and that changed everything, or is it just by being popular people come? I
think that really, you know, when they're diagnosing problems, really what the host of the show said was, I was the problem. And, you know, and that wasn't really far from the truth, in the sense that in a lot of ways, based on the fact that I had been kind of just beaten down for a few years, I had made decisions as I'd become a lazy manager. I wasn't there a lot too. I was focused on opening other stuff, trying to get something else to work. And so I think that largely that diagnosis was 100% correct. I wasn't very engaged in the business. I had people working for me that I probably should have fired a long time ago, but I didn't want to take the time to pick up their shifts and then look for other people. And it was also very tough to attract good employees, because we were doing so poorly, they weren't going to make any money. And so it was this kind of circular catch-22 of really, personality-wise, me not being engaged enough in my business and not having the desire to really put the extra effort, because all of my extra effort had netted, it was a zero-sum gain. So I think that really his diagnosis was correct, that I was the problem. And the thing that I think really changed was that after doing the show, I became much more energized and much more just re-engaged in the business, and really able to more participate in the part that I enjoy, which is the hosting aspect of it. Also, rebranding every so years works really well for entertainment venues. So the rebrand, I think, just in and of itself is something that is a new, when it's, new kid on the block gets all the attention. So I think that was something that helped a lot. We were one of these places that didn't really struggle with the operations side. Most of the time on the show, what you see is inexperienced people trying to run a business that they have very little experience in, and so they struggle really in the operations side. I was really strong on that side, where I really had to do more within the marketing and sales side.
What was the rebranding?
Was to the current brand, which is 38th Floor. We were called Mandala Lounge before. It was a Asian accent kind of contemporary cocktail lounge before, and we did this, and it was really nice when we first opened, and then at our 5-year anniversary I decided to do a remodel that completely failed, and then I ran out of money, and I never really got it back to where I wanted it to be, so it looked really crappy for a couple of years before they came in and did the remodel.
Who paid for the remodel?
They did. It's complete, like winning the lottery. They pay for everything. So it's really it's a tremendous win if you can make it on the show, because they just take care of everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
When they accused you of being the problem,
Right.
was it the way you were kind of running the business side of it, or more like were you the good psychologist at the bar and got to know all the customers, or you weren't getting to know them? Was it more that personal side like that?
I don't think it was really the customer service side. I think that we did that, and I think it was more on my lazy management side in terms of keeping people that were kind of cancers in my business, keeping guys that were not, there was a lot of theft going on. I was aware of it in varieties of ways. And in the bar business, it's not uncommon. You kind of have to manage your loss. And I think mostly it was the fact that I just really wasn't engaged in my business. I wasn't really promoting the business. And that I had people that I wanted more for the service and the consistency and those kind of things, and the people I had working with me wanted, for sure.
Did you also have the problem of the leakage where the bartenders were sell one, drink one? Did you have any problem?
No, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot of problem with drunkenness at the bar, because I don't allow people to drink while we work. So, I mean, you can have maybe one shift drink, and it's just, in my opinion, not professional to drink at the bar or drink at work. But yeah, that wasn't really the issue. I think really the issue was we had a lot of the wrong people there, and they didn't really have any incentive to be any different because I wasn't elevating them. Yes, sir.
Greg, we've seen, quite a few of us have seen the show. We have a video going around.
Oh, great.
The kitchen. But anyway, it would be very hard for anyone in your position with your ego to have him cut you to ribbons on TV. How did you handle that?
It was, it was really, it's not super palatable to have someone take your character defects and cram them down your face, but at the same time, it's very difficult to argue with the truth. And the bottom line was that it's my business. The results are up to me, and there's no one else that I can point to and go, oh, this was, sure, there were some environmental factors that contributed to the lack of, success in the bar. I think that I picked a really crappy location. I picked the location based on the original site plan for the Bay Meadows development that didn't happen. Once 08 hit, they demoed the place and it sat fallow for 6 years. So my thinking was correct before I bought the place. But yeah, it was tough. I think the hardest thing, really, more than anything, was to have to hear my wife's experience with it was the hardest part. But I'm also somebody that is open to change, always have been. And so having, if those changes, whether or not I like the way they're presented to me is immaterial. You know, the fact is, if I have to make changes that are going to improve my life and improve the well-being of the people around me, then so be it, I'm willing to make those changes. Yes, sir.
I'm fascinated with your location.
Hawkins,
How do you, where do you draw your clientele from?
It's, you know, we basically pull from, you know, South City to Redwood City is essentially, and then we actually pull a lot from Hayward and Union City, because you can be there, because there's nothing in those cities entertainment-wise, and you can be, from Hayward, you can be at my spot in 15 minutes.
What's your address? Where?
Oh, it's on East 25th, right near the Expo Center in San Mateo.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
The old British Bankers Club? Not
Or the French Club is 2 doors down from us.
2 doors down.
Yeah, so we're on the
Let's
same
have,
side.
let's have one last question, and then Greg can stick around and you can talk to him privately.
Where'd the name come from?
Good question. The host of the show wanted to reinforce our address, which is 38 East 25th Avenue, and then he designed the inside to look like you're walking into the top floor of an office building. So when you walk through the front door, they have a fake elevator panel, and then you walk around the corner and they have TVs mounted on the wall that have a skyline of San Francisco from Twin Peaks. So it looks, and it represents very well at night. It's a very cool effect. Yeah.
Let's give Greg a